Opportunity to read my statement to you. I chose to write the statement. Sorry?
Let me interrupt for a second. I'm going to ask
Okay.
that you not show her picture, please. She's a minor. Oh, but no, go ahead, ma'am.
I chose to write this statement because I want justice to be served more than anything. The only time that the defendant has appeared in court in person was on June 3rd for his arraignment, which was before the media found out about this case. He has appeared in court today over Zoom instead of appearing in person. This doesn't surprise me and shows what a coward he is. But I am not a coward, and that is why I'm going to reveal all of the details of the crimes that he committed against me. Aside from Cleveland, the only other time that the defendant sexually assaulted me was in October of 2017. It happened in Illinois in the middle of the night. He digitally penetrated me in the back seat of my aunt's car while she was driving him to a friend's house. The Illinois police only agreed to move forward with that case if the Ohio police did not pursue this case. I don't understand why. Regardless of their reasons why, he has gotten away with sexually assaulting me in Illinois. So today, I will be discussing the details of the crimes that he has pleaded guilty to and the impact that they have had on me. But before I do that, I would like to provide you with some context on my relationship with the defendant and what led up to these crimes. This portion of my statement explains how he started grooming me when I was 12 years old. I started off as a fan of him. I was definitely one of his biggest fans. Everyone who knew me as a child knew that he was a hero to me. I would have done anything for him. When I was 11, I learned that my aunt had a mutual friend who knew the defendant. That led to my aunt taking me to meet him for the first time in 2014 when I was 12. I adored him, and he instantly made me feel that he adored me right back. From the time I was 12 to 15, my aunt took me to meet him and spend time with him many times. After I met him for the first time, he started speaking to me more frequently online. I confided in him about very personal things about myself, including my struggle with my mental health. I went to him for advice and for someone to lean on, and he gave me that. I felt protected and loved by him. When I was 13, I went to him for boy advice. He told me that I was beautiful and that boys were stupid. He then sent me a photo of myself that he had screen capped from my Instagram, telling me that I was, quote, such a cutie. I took and uploaded that photo online a year earlier when I was 12 years old. He saved that photo of me onto his phone. I didn't realize how disturbing that was until many years later. Another instance of creepy behavior happened when I was spending time with him at the age of 14. He told me that he couldn't believe how much I'd grown since he last saw me. He said that I wasn't little anymore, and I was, quote, a woman now. When I was 15, I noticed a huge shift regarding his treatment and attitude towards me. When I was younger, he was sweet and actually wanted to talk to me about my life. But at 15, he started sending me messages about how, quote, hot I was. In the summer of 2017, I messaged him, telling him that I was going to see him in concert in the following months. He replied by telling me that he couldn't wait to see me. He also asked me, quote, how old are you now? I told him 15. He then told me to, quote, hurry up, don't smile at me. Not too long after that, his messages to me became blatantly sexual. This eventually led to many months of inappropriate messages and photos being exchanged over Instagram and Snapchat. The photos exchanged included photos of my body and photos of his body and his genitals. In the beginning, I was excited. I thought that he really liked me, and I thought that I meant something to him, but that didn't last. Back then, the last thing I wanted was to lose him, not only because I was completely infatuated with him, but because I became scared of him. There were times where I felt really uncomfortable talking to him in such graphic sexual ways and wanted to be left alone. but I had a very hard time telling him that because I was terrified of upsetting him, so I would make excuses. When I did, quote, upset him, he made me cry. If I didn't give him what he wanted, he was spiteful. It made me feel guilty. He made me feel disgusting and absolutely awful about myself. At that point, it was clear that he was the one who was in control. I felt trapped and stuck because I still idolized him. He had me wrapped around his finger. This caused a tremendous amount of stress and shame. Crimes that he committed against me in Cleveland. I want to make something very clear. The reason that these particular incidents did not result any further than oral sex was because the defendant knew that I was menstruating at the time. Had I not been menstruating then, he would have raped me. Don't look at me like that. Because he would tell me how badly he wanted to penetrate me vaginally, but used much more vulgar language. On December 1st, 2017, my aunt took me to the Odeon Concert Club to watch him perform. That night, the defendant took me backstage to be alone with him. He started kissing me, and the night ended in him having me perform oral sex on him twice. The next incident happened on December 2nd, 2017, while I was alone with him in his hotel room. He had talked to me about seeing me one last time before we all left Cleveland and went home. So we went to his hotel to say goodbye. In his hotel room, he started kissing me and had me perform oral sex on him again. My aunt was right outside the room waiting in the hallway while this was happening. She trusted him and never thought that he would ever do anything to hurt me. Now, I would like to bring up an individual who has known about these crimes for years. This person is the defendant's partner, Janet Vaughn. In January of 2018, I was engaging in an inappropriate conversation with who I thought was the defendant until I received a message back from the defendant's account claiming to be Janet. That was the first interaction I ever had with her. This confused and devastated me. When I begged the defendant for an explanation about that exchange with her, he brushed it off by repeatedly claiming that everything was fine. After these crimes happened, I tried to shake off all of the gross feelings that I had. Ignoring those feelings only made them worse. I felt so miserable, broken, and humiliated. I was struggling to sleep every night. The sexual messages continued for a while after that, until I eventually put a stop to them. I did that by confronting him about what he had done to me. I confronted him in September of 2018, just weeks before I had reported the Illinois and Ohio crimes to my local police. I chose to confront him about what he had done to me because I wanted to gain my power back. I had to suck up all of the fear that I felt in order to confront him. He ignored me for many days at first. Eventually, he tried apologizing to me for, quote, breaking my heart, but deleted those messages quickly afterward. His crimes are not heartbreaking or whatever other loose term he uses. They are disgusting. He didn't care then, and he doesn't care now. That makes me feel worthless. I confronted Janet as well. When I confronted her, she claimed that she didn't know anything about these crimes. She denied speaking with me in January of 2018 and claimed that wasn't her. She told me that none of this was my fault and apologized to me. She also told me that she wanted to, quote, jump in front of a car. However, at one point, she asked me to let her know when I was going to the police with this case for her own benefit. Of course, I did not do that. She knows what happened and she doesn't care. Janet is just one of the few people who have tried to protect him, and the others will now know exactly who they are. The pain that the defendant has caused me is indescribable, and it worsens every day. Being used by somebody who meant the world to me has left me feeling more hurt than I've ever been before. I am now 19 and my life hasn't been the same since I was 15. I think about these crimes every single day. I feel like I'm in a constant dark place. Sometimes I wish I could disappear so I can forget about what happened. Right after I reported him, my parents sent me to a therapist. So far, they have spent $7,620 in hopes that she can help me move forward from this. These crimes have especially impacted my relationship with my aunt. For a while, I could not fathom how my aunt had no idea what was going on, and that made me doubt the trust that I had in her. To this day, there is still tension and awkwardness between her and myself. Every time I speak to her and look at her, I think about the defendant and what he did to me. My relationship with my aunt will never be the same, and that breaks my heart. My whole family is hurting because I am hurting. Their trust in my aunt has been affected too. My aunt blames herself for leaving me alone with the defendant. My parents blame themselves for placing their trust in my aunt to protect me and keep me safe. It's awful to hear them say that. Every night, I dread going to sleep because I don't want to see him in my nightmares. I have lost many nights of sleep because of this. I've lost count over how many times I fell asleep in class when I was in high school due to so many sleepless nights. I also occasionally had to leave school early due to having panic attacks that were triggered by these incidents. During these panic attacks, I would struggle to breathe, sweat, shake, cry, and often faint. When I do sleep and do see him in my nightmares, it throws off my entire day. I'm sorry. These crimes have affected my dating life as well. Every date I have since gone on has ended with me going home crying. Every time I feel the slightest bit vulnerable around a guy, all I can think of and see is the defendant. I have serious trust issues because of him. Dating your teenage years should be a fun experience and should not be something that brings up trauma caused by a grown man. The defendant's crimes against me are the worst things that he could have ever done to me. He was such a huge part of my childhood, and in return, he ruined my life. Back when I confronted him, he told me that he didn't want me to hate him. I don't hate him, I loathe him. Now I would like to ask you something important. Whether a person has a lot of influence, some or none at all, these are crimes that are unforgivable and inexcusable. They can never be taken back. He was calculating, he preyed on me and sexually abused me. He is a monster and a danger to children. I am kindly asking you to send a powerful message that these crimes are never okay, no matter who a person is. I also want to bring up the letter that I wrote to you. In my letter, I explain why the defendant is not remorseful for his crimes. I described how he has publicly found humor in them and how he has used tactics to gain sympathy from the public. He could have easily ignored the people online who were mocking this case. Instead, he went out of his way to let them know that he thinks it's funny, and he can give me that look all he wants. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. The crimes that he committed against me are some kind of sick joke to him. My suffering is not for him to laugh at or his leverage to brag about becoming a good man now that he is a father. So today, if the defendant tries to tell you that he is remorseful, I am asking you to appreciate that actions speak louder than words. Since his arraignment and plea hearing, his actions have been loud and clear, and they have shown that he simply does not care and does not have an ounce of remorse. I won't be surprised if he tries to manipulate everybody into believing that he's changed, but he can't fool me. If he is truly sorry for anything, he is sorry that he has finally been caught. I can assure you of that. He committed these crimes against me with pride. A defendant who clearly feels no remorse for his crimes deserves to be given the maximum sentence possible. I will never forget what he did to me. I idolized and looked up to him, and he took that and broke it in the most sickening way possible. He is the epitome of evil. I deserved better than to be used for his sick desires and for my suffering to be used for his amusement. Jared Drake Bell is a pedophile, and that is his legacy. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anything further on behalf of the state? On behalf of the defense?
Thank you, Your Honor. First, before I really get into the sentencing, I would like to recognize and acknowledge the professionalism that was shown by my colleague Kevin Bringman and his supervisor Jennifer Driscoll in allowing us to really process this case over a long period of time. While the case seems that it went so quickly from arraignment to plea to sentencing, it's because the work was done on the front. And I do appreciate their working with us to effectuate that. You know, there's no question that Drake has accepted his responsibility in this case by the way of his plea. He has pled to the felony of the 4th degree, attempted child endangerment, and a misdemeanor disseminating, neither of which require any sexual registration. The chat that was referred to by Prosecutor Bringman was the dissemination, and that did create a risk of harm to then minor, now adult, and I think we're just going by initials, SG in this case. If not, it doesn't matter. Names, do you want victim or SG? Doesn't matter, but I'll leave it to you. Victim. All right. For the prosecutors asked that I just refer to this person as victim, so I will do that for purposes of this hearing. You know, there have been a lot of claims that were made by the victim here, and it's not often, or can I even recall an instance where defense counsel at sentencing had to address the credibility of the victim's allegations at sentencing. But this appears to be that time. I will simply say this, some of these claims that were made about sending photos of genitals, we went through these claims with the prosecutor's office for a long time, approximately 18 months. No such image was presented, either to the state or to the defense. The claim that he is a pedophile lacks any sort of factual support from the case, and it also lacks any sort of mental health claim. It's an easy tag to give someone, but doesn't fit in this case. Clearly, the victim in this case, and again, it's difficult because it's hard for me to walk the very fine line in this case between what he did and what he's being accused of doing, that which he accepted responsibility for and that which he would never accept responsibility for.
Well, I'm going to ask you, what is he accepting responsibility for?
So the acceptance of the responsibility, Your Honor, is for chats that occurred between he and the victim.
What was the subject matter of those chats?
The subject matter of those chats were there's a lot to it. So there was discussion because they had known each other for years, and there were claims that became sexual in nature. When asked, however, at what point, or at your age, excuse me, at that point he said, "Can you hurry up?" which shows a complete intent not to engage with a minor. So, however, those chats, harmful as they were, clearly harmed this person at that time.
They were sexual in nature.
Those were, yes. Thank you. They certainly, however, Your Honor, did not mimic any of the factual scenarios that the victim has brought up here today. And again, I have to emphasize the fact that once the age was known, that terminated at that point, saying hurry up with the age. But I will say this.
Let me ask you this.
Yes,
You're
please.
saying he didn't know how old she was when he first started engaging in conversations with her, either at a concert or by telephone. He didn't know that her age.
At the start, he may not have known. He did learn of the age at a later time, Your Honor, and that is why he's accepting the plea. What's it? Yeah, during the chats, Your Honor. Kevin, you have the dates on the chats? The chats, correct? You would agree? Yeah. So the state and defense would agree the age was mentioned during those chats, Your Honor. All right. So, Your Honor, other than this offense for which he's pled guilty, this court is aware that there were two OVIs, but nothing ever similar to anything like this. We would ask for basic community controlled sanction, which would then be transferred to California. That certainly would be sufficient pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 29, 29, 11, 12, 13, and 14, because in this case, recidivism does not appear likely, and nor does the severity of it outweigh any similar offenses by similar offenders when we're looking at what was actually pled to in this case. The claim that seeing the therapist resulted from this, and again, this is where I'm just going to take this responsibility for making the record straight. I'm sure it's not going to be, the victim in this case is not going to like what I have to say, but we are aware that that therapy did not begin with Drake. This began before. Throughout this case, and this is why I think that the plea is very accurate and very fitting, and all parties agreed to this, including the victim in this case, was aware of this before this day and approved of this plea. Clearly, she, according to a lot of the statements that were provided in this case, worshiped and kind of held herself out as a super fan of Mr. Bell. There were no claims at all of any sort of inappropriate conduct until the victim in this case learned of Mr. Bell's fiance, now wife. And at that point, that's when everything kind of turned her world upside down. In going through all of these statements and all the witnesses in this case, I will just simply, I'm trying to do this in as gentle a manner as possible, but there was certainly concern for the victim's reality in her case and in her claims thereafter. The claims as to Janet Bell and the exchange online that was happening, we had provided a video to the prosecutor's office from Ms. Bell. She explained why she spoke to the victim the way that she did. She explained that she was just trying to appease her and trying to let her believe that she was just being heard because she had difficulty even talking to her about it. So this was not anything that, as the victim somehow believes now, was genuine by Ms. Bell. This was an attempt just simply to diffuse the situation, which in hindsight, they clearly judged correctly as a dangerous situation. I'm not sitting here today, Judge, to minimize the conduct of what Drake did. But what was accused here today, what was brought out here today, was a far other world from what we, the state and the defense, had contemplated prior to. Since the time of her allegation, when she claims that this happened, she went to 9 additional concerts that he was at. She would message him saying, "I miss you." When we talk about the kind of different reality, I think one of the points that stood out most to me was in the victim's videoed statement to the detective in this case from the Cleveland Police Department, Atanasio, when he asked her, "Has anyone come to speak to you on behalf of the defense?" And she said, "Yes." And the detective said, "Who was that?" "Well, they're the private investigator for Mr. Bell." And we were, the prosecution, defense, were all in the same room. We heard that. And we knew perfectly well that that had never happened. And then all of a sudden she stated that, "Oh, you know what? Actually, I was wrong. I was confused. It didn't happen. It was just seemed really realistic to me." And that showed great concern for credibility and recollection. She talks about the hotel room at the A-Loft, and I understand that she has problems with her aunt now, but it is important to show that there was another adult who was there. All of this was shared with the state and the defense. This is why we pled the way that we did to what was actually done, not what is actually being stated here today. And that friend was very clear, not just in a statement to the defense, but also in another recorded statement to the Cleveland Police Detective Atanasio. And that person stated that the victim had never gone into Mr. Bell's room alone, period. And that was twice stated to us and to the detective. She talks about performing oral sex here today on 2 occasions, stating that there was never, that this happened in the back room at the Odeon. We also were able to identify and share witnesses who indicated they had gone back and forth down the hall into that room throughout the night. The door was open. There were people in that room at all times, and this did not happen. She did tell one of her friends, and I'll get to some here in a moment, that she did report this when she did because she did not, or she stated that Mr. Bell did not respond to her liking. So in essence, what this is was a person who, and that's okay, idolized this person. His conduct was not correct. It was not proper for what he did. And unfortunately, he did not know who he was speaking with and the damage that this was going to do. But I have to be very clear because it would not be fair to sit there and just accept everything that was said. What occurred, or what the victim is claiming to have occurred here, not only am I saying that it did not happen, not only would Mr. Bell say that that did not happen, but the evidence in the evidence in this case would suggest it did not happen. And again, we all know that this prosecutor's office would pursue child sex charges and go to great lengths and aggressively, as they should, and we've seen it many times. If they felt that that was a provable case, I'm sure we would not be talking here today about an attempted child endangerment and a disseminating matter harmful to a minor. Now, as far as sanction, Your Honor, in asking for the basic community control sanction, I would submit that there's already a great penalty that has been paid by Mr. Bell that others would not face, merely because of his position. As the court knows, online, if you just simply type in his name, the initial Google result will come up with 23.6 million results that deal with Drake Bell and this very process for which we're standing here today. So this is something that's going to tag him and follow him around. He's already seen a loss of employment because of this, because people have wondered, what is this all about? My hope is that that will start up for him again when now they know what the reality of this actually is. You know, again, to go back to the just flippant claim that he's a pedophile, as the court is aware, we did engage professionals in this, and there is no such finding.
I was being really stupid and irresponsible, and you know, fans reach out to you on Instagram, and sometimes you respond, and then you see them at concerts. There was an individual who I had conversed with on Instagram, and I hadn't known her age. And so I started conversing with her, and she became, I mean, for lack of better words, a kind of obsessive, and when I found out that, you know, how old she was, I stopped communication and blocked her and cut it off, and that kind of sent her into a tailspin, and she started contacting my wife and threatening my wife and saying that she was gonna, you know, tell people that this had happened and all of these lies and all these things had happened that hadn't happened. A lot of these accusations coming out about a lot of people, the accusation stuck, and it went into a full-on police investigation, and you know, it was wild. They went in, they took my phones and my computers, and the whole 18-month investigation, investigating the claims. Yeah, almost 2 years about investigating the claims that this person had made.
But you never met her, did you?
She came to concerts, yeah. I mean, she came to concerts, but I didn't know, you know, you meet fans and they're these 5-second hug and a kiss and an autograph. There was never any extracurricular activities, if you will, you know. It was...
Sorry to ask you, did you rape her?
No, of course not. I didn't do any of the things she said, and thankfully the forensic evidence showed it. I would still be in trouble because of my irresponsible act of, you know, not making sure I knew what I was supposed to know, you know, and we would have had the same outcome, but it would have been in the papers. It would have been like the Depp trial. It would have been, you know, everybody be watching under a microscope. My wife we just found out my wife was pregnant. We'd had the baby during this whole process, and so at home, you know, I just wanted to get home and get back to work and get all this behind me, and the fastest and smoothest way to do that was to just say, okay, I'll take responsibility for what I've done here, as long as we're able to, dispute everything, all of the false accusations that have been made. But my mistake was conversing with this person not knowing how old she was, and that's what I got in trouble for, because the story had been changed throughout the entire course of this process. It had gone from, oh, it was consensual, we had a relationship, to I forced her to do things, to it was non-consensual, forced, coerced, her story kept changing, so that when her statement at trial came out, the judge had to say, this is something that the court has never heard before.
So what's your status now? You're under probation, right?
Yeah, I'm under probation, which is about to be lifted, and
What does that mean?
it just means that I have to check in with a probation officer and let him know that I'm still at the same residence and doing well.
Okay, and you have like 200 hours of community service or something?
Yeah,
like that?
200 hours, which I'm pretty much done with at this point. Which is, honestly, it was actually kind of a good experience. I was working at a food bank. We were packaging food and giving it a lot of people around the community, and the reports came out that I was, I had to register, that California was going to put me on the sexual registry, that this and that, and none of it's remotely even true. I mean, I travel, I just got back from Europe. I'm here in Mexico all the time. If anything that was any of the accusations were remotely true, obviously I wouldn't be sitting here. Literally, the offense was distributing matter harmful to a juvenile. Basically, I flirted with a girl that I didn't know was underage, and that was it.
After the whole investigation, we actually found out that she was stalking me as well, and had photos of me and myriad messages of me as well. She was a fan who really loved Drake and created a whole fantasy in her head.
But she called you, right?
She
wanted to destroy your family.
She wrote me on Instagram from multiple accounts.
Janet, but Drake just said that you were doubtful at some point, and you said like, really?
It's very easy to get distracted in all of that, and having, hundreds of people, bully you online. It gets to your head, and I also, like you said, I was pregnant, so I was, emotional, I was hormonal, I was sensitive, but the doubt came from so many different things, because not only is he my partner and my best friend, but we've been doing business together for 6 years. So I've been able to help with the music and watch the fan base grow. So it's like, not only was I nervous that I was gonna watch the light and passion come from my husband.
I feel like it's strengthened our marriage and our relationship, so. But it was really hard, especially with her being pregnant, and I think that what we've been going through has really shown me that the most important thing in life really is being a dad and being a husband, and having this family, And thank you, Ricardo, for allowing us to do this interview, and Ventaneando for allowing this and letting us clear the air, and it's been really great. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, muchísimas. It was so construed and taken out of context, and things were left out when it was being when things were being reported, and it created a complete narrative that is absolutely not the case, not true. I had gotten I had found myself in some hot water when I was, being stupid, and responded to somebody who had created a Finsta, like a fake Instagram, and were sending me, messages, and I had responded, and it got to a certain point, and then I had realized, oh my gosh, like, I think this is, not entirely what it seems, or what they've presented it as. And I stopped communicating with them because I found out, oh, okay, I think this person's not who they're, this isn't the case. And I stopped communicating. That sent that person into a total tailspin. They ended up, going after my wife and going after, telling me, threatening me, and doing all of these things. And so I had ended up getting in a little bit of trouble because of these text messages. But that's all it was. It was just just some text messages. And well, when you go and you look me up and you see the reports, I mean, it's like I was sending nudes and I was getting inappropriate pictures, and I was physical with this person at a concert, or that person at a concert, or I did this and that. And none of that was the case, and it was all investigated in my case, through witnesses and for digital forensics. They'd taken my phones and subpoenaed my Instagrams and social media and all that, and everything that was said came up false. Came up. There was no proof of any of that in there, which there would have been. I mean, if there's it's digital forensics. Like, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. You can't even delete. I mean, even if you try to delete it, they're gonna find what they need to find. And then luckily for any of the physical stuff that happened in the concert, I had, so many witnesses that came out, that not even on my side, but on the accuser's side, where they were like, what are you talking? We were there the whole time. This didn't occur. They were never here alone. This didn't occur. And so none of that, moved forward as far as charges or anything. All that could move forward was that, I was stupid and responded to some text messages. And that's what I essentially ended up getting charged with.
Yeah.
But if you go and you read anything, I mean, it wasn't even an assault case. My case wasn't even there was no sexual assault, no assault, no physical anything in any of the charges and any of the what I had to go through. But if you go and look me up, it's like Drake Bell charged with sexual assault. Drake Bell has to register as a sex offender. I'm like, it wasn't even a sex case.
Yeah. And
it wasn't even an assault case. It was. It had nothing to do with that.
And it's frustrating that you can't do anything about fake news. Like, there's no way you can retaliate.
No, what am I going to do? Go sue in some publication, and then a few days later they write an article, bashing me, and then at the very end they're like, oh, by the way, we fixed a couple of the things. I mean, nobody reads that. They just read the first headline, then they're done. Yeah. After I was sentenced for what I went through, there were headlines saying that, Drake Bell is going to have to register as a sex offender in California. I mean, it wasn't even a sex case. I hate talking like this, but that wasn't what happened.
Yeah.
And that wasn't why I was there. And that's not why I, and the reason I pled guilty to even the charges that I was charged with was because my attorney looked at me and said, look, I'd already spent, so much money on representation and investigation and all this stuff just to defend myself. And they said, well, now look, this is what a trial is going to look like. You're going to go, it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks. My wife and I had just had a son. So they're like, your son's going to be sitting behind you watching this happen, and the media is going to twist it any way they want that's going to make it the most clickable as possible. And it's going to be every day. People are going to be watching what's happening every day. And anybody is going to be able to say anything they want on the stand, whether it's true or not. And unfortunately, we see guilty people walk away and innocent people go to jail every day.
Yeah.
And I just looked at them and I was like, what? Well, what's the other option? Said the other option is you take responsibility for this this here and what you did here. You take responsibility for that, and we charge you. You'll get, probation, community service, and you won't miss a day in California with your son. And I said, I'll take the one where I don't miss a day in California with my son. And so that's why I pleaded guilty. But now it goes over. Drake Bell pleads guilty. It's like, no, I was presented with two options. You would have done the same thing, And then it says pled guilty to sexual assault, and it's like, none of that's true. None of that is remotely true, and unfortunately, it's put a huge stain on everything that I've worked for and everything that I've been doing. And another bummer is I know I'm vague about it, but because I just haven't really found the time or the place or been comfortable enough to discuss really what I've gone through in Hollywood and my story. But being labeled these things that I've been called in these past, couple years, it's really hard. It's really difficult when there are, actual, perpetrators out there that are, doing really bad things and things that have happened to me and now I'm being, labeled I'm being called all these different things, and anybody can just make a TikTok or Instagram post and say, oh, he's this and that, and people believe it immediately. Yeah. It's so amazing how, depending on how many likes it has, raises the believability of whatever that person's saying when it's completely false. Like for example, I made a joke on my social media and changed my name to Campana. Like, I was just like, on my social media, I was like, yeah, hey, Trey Campana. And then all of a sudden, there were news reports because somebody made a TikTok that Drake Bell changed his name, moved to Mexico, became a citizen, is running away from everything that he's going through in the United States. And big newspapers think it's that easy to just become a citizen of Mexico and move here. And what it took me like 3 weeks by the time they broke the story and everybody and they take that and then they take what all of these other clickbait things about me and they mush them together. And they're like, oh, that's why he moved to Mexico and changed his name. It's to get away from this and this and this. I'm like, I never moved to Mexico. I'd love to. Yeah. I've never changed my name. This isn't what I got in trouble for. This is not what, even during my sentencing, when, this accuser said everything that she said, even the judge said, okay, I don't know what all that was, but that's not why we're here.
This is like new material.
Yeah, this is news. This is a litany of allegations that we haven't heard, and I have to bring everybody back to why we're here today, and it's over these few messages.
Hi, I'm Drake Bell, not Drake Campana. Soy Drake Bell, yo no soy Drake Campana. A lot of the news that you've been hearing, well, most of the news that you've heard recently is entirely false and wrong. And I feel that you deserve and I owe you an explanation. I didn't change my name. Although I would love to. I've never moved to Mexico. I've never been a resident or a citizen of Mexico. I don't have a Mexican passport. I didn't get arrested. I didn't go to jail. I know that this has moved very quickly for you, but for me, it's been a 3-year thorough investigation into every false claim that has been made. And it's not me telling you that the claims are false, but the state of Ohio has proven the claims to be false. if these claims were remotely true, my situation would be very different. I would not be here at home with my wife and my son. But that being said, I'm not perfect, and I made mistakes. I responded to a fan whose age I didn't know. Yet when I became aware of their age, all conversation and communication stopped. And this individual continued to come to shows and pay for meet and greets, and all while I was unaware that this was the same person I was communicating with online. And that's what I pled guilty to. It was reckless and irresponsible text messages. I want to make clear that there were no sexual images, nothing physical between me and this individual. I was not charged with anything physical. I was not charged with disseminating of photographs or images or anything like that. This is strictly over text messages. And when I was presented with a plea deal, because of the messages, I felt that it was the best way to get this over quickly and for everybody involved to be able to move on and for me to get back to doing what I love, and that's making music for you. And I want to thank you for, to everyone who saw through the lies and did their research and looked at my case and saw it for what it was instead of through all of this media confusion. Don't believe the media right off the bat. It's a lot of clickbait. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I want to for sticking by me, and I love you. And I will see you soon.
All right, here we go.
I was sleeping on the couch where I would usually sleep, and I woke up to him. I just opened my eyes, I woke up, and he was and I froze and was in complete shock and had no idea what to do or how to react. And I had no idea how to get out of the situation. I couldn't run outside. I had my phone. I mean, it was just, what am I gonna call my mom and be like, hey, this just happened. Can you come pick me up? I'll just sit here and wait. I had no car. I didn't drive. I was 15 at this time. And so it just became this secret that I had held on to. And it became...
I mean, how many people can relate to this right here, right? How many people can relate to the secret? Like, I think also when you even come forward, right, and you're wanting to see justice and you're wanting to see the person who harmed you, see them face consequences for their actions, right? At the same time, you don't want people to know what happened to you, because you don't want people to look at you differently. And I feel like, especially for, public figures, for example, the whole world ends up knowing about their trauma and talking about it and tweeting about it and having their opinions about it. And don't think the survivors aren't reading. They are, sadly. Eventually they get told by their therapist, or someone close to them to not read it, but they do. And they see a lot of things that people are saying, and It's sad and it's hard and it's and extremely difficult and re-traumatizing as well. And so that secret part I just really relate to, because there's so many layers of why you end up wanting it to be something that not everyone knows, right? It's just very real. Okay.
You know, I couldn't say I no longer wanted to go to Brian's house because then they're going to raise questions. Well, why don't you want to go to Brian's? And then, you know, he's so apologetic. Oh, this will never happen again. I'm so sorry. You know, that I don't know what got into me, and I crossed the line, and this will never happen again. And well, he figured out how to convince my mom and everyone around to have me, you know, anytime I would have an audition or anytime I needed to work on dialogue or anything, I somehow ended up back at Brian's house.
Mm.
And
oh my God,
it just got worse and worse and worse. And worse. And I was just trapped. And I had no way out. The was extensive.
you know, not only as a child essay survivor, right? Adults, I feel like, can relate to what Drake said there about being trapped there because of how manipulative the predator is, not only with you, towards you, but also with everyone around you. And this isn't just children being trapped. Adults feel trapped too. And they get afraid that no one's going to believe them. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't end up believing them. It's a very valid fear. It's a very valid fear. And the predators are so manipulative, and really not just with the victim, with everyone around the victim. And the victim can see that. And the victim will be like, who's going to believe that I know the real version of this person, that I've seen who this person really is? And when we read the letters that were in defense of Brian Peck, right, it's all these people claiming that they knew who Brian Peck was, that he was this, that he was amazing, that he was professional, he was this, he was that. He wasn't any of those things. He was preying on the bystanders as well, wearing the mask. He was preying on them too. And the victim, the survivor, witnesses that, can see that people are seeing only what the predator is showing. And it's just very real. It's not just for, you know, child SA survivors. This is also for adult, you know, survivors. And I just want to make that very, very clear.
And it got pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. I don't know. I really don't know how to elaborate on that on camera, really.
Whatever you feel comfortable or you think will help.
Why don't you do this?
Yeah.
Why don't you think of the worst stuff that someone can do to somebody, and that'll answer your question. I don't know how else to put it. It was not a one-time thing. It was not a, oops, no, it is, I mean,
So sad. Is it not sad? Just like, wait, I'm gonna look at the chat for a second, see if I missed anything. It's just like so, and even like, look, like all survivors out there, you know, so many years, right, of him having to always remember this. Always remember this. And still look how hard it is to tell people.
lights, out of sight. Long weed, sold in, say it again, sold in. Make that money, throw it in. Booty bouncing, go ahead. Rolls Royce, Lamborghini, Blue Medina, always beaming. Rag top, chrome pipes, blue lights, out of sight. Long weed, sold in, say it again, sold in. Make that money, throw it in. Booty bouncing, go ahead. Rolls Royce, Lamborghini, Blue Medina, always beaming. Rag top, chrome pipes, blue lights, out of sight. Long weed, sold in, say it again, sold in. Make that money, throw it in. Booty bouncing, go ahead. Rolls Royce, Lamborghini, Blue Medina, always beaming. Rag top, chrome pipes.